Welcome to another episode of the House Huddle Podcast. Here are your hosts, Rob Schwartz and Justin Onayemi, two Bears fans who decided talking into a microphone was better than shouting at their television.
Hey, House Huddlers. It's just me, Rob, this time. This episode ended up being a lot longer than what we expected. It was actually about an hour and a half. And rather than have one long video that people have to kind of go through, and I know I can break it up into chapters, we're just going to release this into 3 parts. So it's going to be 3 separate videos. This is going to be part 1. Part 1 is going to be us looking at the free agents that Ryan Poles had signed these past few days, and just kind of giving our take on what we thought. And then after part 1, go ahead and go check out part 2. Part 2 is going to be us looking at free agents that maybe Ryan Poles missed out on. Guys that we thought, probably should have been signed or could have been signed. Or guys that, the fan base thinks should have been signed, and, maybe we don't agree. And then check out part 3. Part 3 is going to be, where do they go from here? Right? Where do they go to get offensive line help? Where do they go to get defensive line help? Where do they go to find a cornerback? Okay, it's kind of a shorter one, just an overview of it. But hope you check out all 3 parts. And remember, subscribe. Subscribe to the channel. As soon as we hit 330 subscribers, we're well on our way. We will be giving out that free obvious shirt of your guys choosing, whoever wins. And then, hey, if you subscribe now, we got a giveaway. Going to be doing a jersey giveaway closer to the season. Got a big mark to hit for that one, but I think we can do it. All right. Remember, huddle up. Welcome into episode 36. How's everyone doing, House Huddlers? Huddle up! All right, we have a special guest with us. If you guys are paying attention, for those of you who have actually been following us for a while, Bob Weiss was on the very first game.
That's right, first win of the season.
Yeah,
Green Bay.
One of the best wins, probably.
Yeah. One of the 3.
Yeah. the monsoon slide game.
Yeah, San Fran. So, I'm sure they knew, even without watching, they heard that 3-part harmony on Huddle Up. So yeah, they knew there was someone here.
Yeah, those are for your audio listeners who can't see us on the screen. But as always, Rob Schwartz joined with me, my good buddy and co-host Justin Onayemi. We have our guest Bob Weiss with us, who, again, if you remember him from that episode, or he also comments on the show constantly, another good friend of ours. So.
Well, we've also mentioned him on a quarter of our episodes.
Yeah, my name comes up a bunch.
Yeah. Maybe as much as...
I don't know.
Not quite as much as George Pickens, maybe right. It's like Justin Fields, George Pickens, and me.
Right. There you go. In order of mentions, but not importance.
Yeah.
You're at the top of our list, Bob.
Much appreciated.
So we have a 3-part show for you guys tonight. We're going to talk about free agency, obviously, signings. We're going to talk about guys who they maybe have missed on, not signed. And then we're going to kind of talk about where do they go from here. Before we get to that, though, I want to mention 2 things. One, hit the subscribe button. If you guys subscribe to our channel, we're going to be giving away a T-shirt from Obvious Shirts. If you've never looked at Obvious Shirts, just look it up, obviousshirts.com. They have a ton of shirt options. I had mentioned it can be anything. I would prefer that someone chooses a football option, but they have baseball, basketball. They even have stuff that's not related to sports, so you guys can choose. As long as it's a T-shirt, we will cover the cost of that, shipping, whatever is needed. So definitely hit that subscribe button. We need to hit 330. I think we're at 257 right now, so we're on our way. And once we hit 330, I will do a drawing for that.
And can I say one thing also?
Yeah.
So Monday was the beginning of unofficial tampering. I don't understand the language of all that. That seems kind of odd.
Yeah.
Official tampering. My bad. We know there's unofficial tampering that must be going on as well, because some of these deals strike pretty fast. But the Bears got active, and we kind of wanted to record, but we waited a bit. So it is Thursday night for us here, March 16th. Things are breaking constantly, but now we have a lot more to discuss. But maybe the stuff will keep breaking even this evening.
I mean, technically, we're a little bit more than 24 hours into official free agency, right? Because that was 4 o'clock Eastern yesterday.
Well, and we know from last year with Ogunjobi that it matters to be official.
Those guys, they showed up to Hell Salt today, so I think that's a good sign.
They did.
That's a good sign.
They had interviews, like press conferences, so I'm guessing they all passed their physicals.
Right. I surely hope so. So, anyway.
Since then, we've had more signings that took place beyond what we were planning on for tonight. But before we get to that, we got to talk briefly about the elephant in the room. Maybe not elephant. Maybe the mouse. Mouse like cheese. Do you guys know where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers.
The cheese gave it away.
Yeah. So it's not official yet, but it sounds like Aaron Rodgers might be going out of the NFC North.
It sounds like at least he's out for playing for the Packers.
I mean,
right?
I'm fine with that.
Until I see it officially happen. And by the way, Adam Schefter will not be breaking that news.
I saw that nonsense too.
It'll probably be Pat McAfee, right?
That's his go-to.
Until it's official, I'm not going to count him out. But they already signed Alan Lazard.
So I'll be honest, and I probably am on record in previous Hallis Huddle episodes saying this. I would have rather beat him on his way out.
Yes.
Win a few of the games against him.
My main takeaway. It'd been nice to be done with him.
Yeah.
But hey, maybe he'll come back and play for the Vikings, and we can knock him out then.
Follow the exact Brett Favre.
If that happens, can we officially say that there is a script to the NFL and they are just regurgitating it?
All right. If that happens, I'll get on board. I'm not there yet. So.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, we have a lot to get into. So do you guys have anything else to bring up before I just throw us right into first segment?
Get into it.
Yeah, let's just go right in.
All right. So the first segment, we're going to talk about free agency signings. I'm just going to go in the order that I have them written down. I don't have them in any importance of hierarchy or anything like that. So we're just going to take them as I throw them. The first one we're going to discuss is, I want to say Roquan Smith replacement, but he's really not, because he's more like Jack Sanborn's replacement. Tremaine Edmunds, linebacker out of Buffalo, 25 years old only. Actually, he might not even be 25 yet. He's going to be 25 during the season. So I'm just going to throw it to Justin and get your thoughts on that.
So absolutely, I positively love this signing, and it's funny how you introed it mentioning Roquan, because I do hear people kind of talking about, well, why didn't you just sign Roquan? Now you're choosing this guy over Roquan. That's not the right way to frame the conversation, because they got rid of Roquan because they weren't confident they were going to be able to sign him. And when they got rid of him, I mean, we saw he mattered a lot in the third win of their season, which was the Houston win. But if you win one more game, you don't have the #1 pick, and you don't make the exciting trade that we'll obviously talk about as well.
Especially because it was Houston.
Exactly. So I just love this this signing. His size speed combination is incredible. As you mentioned, his age, which polls certainly seems to be targeting younger free agents. He's young, but still has a lot of experience. And I would actually describe DJ Moore that same way. I don't know how much we take PFF ratings into consideration. Sometimes they seem very, very spot on. Other times a little off. I believe he was rated the top cover linebacker in the league last year. So that's something that even Roquan wasn't necessarily a specialist at. But I just love that this guy's going to be all over the field. And I think he's going to be a leader too, from what I hear of how he is in Buffalo. So what about you, Bob? What do you think about this signing?
Yeah, I mean, I love it too. I think it's, if you actually listen to the things Ryan Poles says, and I think that we can agree over the past few weeks, like what he says kind of comes true, right? Like ever since day one, he's been talking about him and Eberflus's vision for the team. And it always includes, long, strong, fast, and violent. And like that's Edmunds to a T, right? So it's him following through on what he says he's going to do, build a team in a certain vision. And I think the other thing too is he said it in his press conference today. There's a difference between signing an actual one of the best players at their position in the sport versus signing a best available player in free agency, and that's what he did here. I mean, he's you want to put stock into those grades or not, but he's one of the best linebackers in the league, not just one that happens to be available. And young, he just fits the vision, and lock him up.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of you guys, what you guys just said. And like Ryan Poles keeps talking about value, and as the rest of the NFL seemed to be zigging, and the fan base was zigging because everyone was like wanting certain players. He zagged and took we'll get to the second linebacker, but two linebackers that no one had even like thought would be an option or like a target or I mean, they're both a great fit. I'm still pissed off about the Jack Sanborn situation. But that's
tough take for Jack Sanborn. Well, but hey, he can't argue about having too many good linebackers, right?
No, I mean, it's now going to be like, and I hate bringing these guys up, especially one of them, but it's basically like going to be like your Urlacher, your Briggs, and your Hillenmeyer. Like, what a combination, right?
Yeah, but I wouldn't hate to bring that up. That was when they had a defense that put fear in people and could actually impact the game and tip it in your favor with what I consider a far less exciting offense.
Yeah. And the linebackers were a liability last year. I mean, obviously the defensive line was too, but like from a run stopping standpoint, Nicholas Morrow, not good. And from a coverage standpoint, I don't know how many times I saw Nicholas Morrow just getting burned.
Just wasn't able to react to those
I wasn't going to bring up Sanborn until we talked about the next linebacker, so I don't know if we want to go there right now.
We'll go there. I just have one stat to bring up that I just saw. And by the way, he is only 24. He's almost 25. His birthday is in like less than 30 days.
Let me interrupt you real quick on that, though. I'm sorry. I know you got one more point. He's like the dream guy we would take in Madden back in the day.
100%. 100%.
Bob and I, we played Madden in college.
Come up a little bit.
Create our own fantasy teams, and you always got to go for that youth. You know, like he came in the league at 20.
Youth and the speed.
And
youth and speed.
Yes.
Like
he was who was the equivalent. There's a certain guy I'm thinking of, linebacker.
DJ Williams, maybe. Maybe one of the guys we always went after.
Suggs. Terrell Suggs.
Yeah.
So anyway,
so now two things. I'm going to piggyback off that. He's going into his 6th year in the NFL, and he's younger than Velus Jones.
I wasn't going to say it because I'm not a Velus Jones hater. Like,
I mean, I'm not.
But it's just whenever age comes up, you always got to make a Velus Jones joke. I get it.
I get it.
Joke. It's fine. I just wasn't going to make the joke.
Who was the quarterback that was like 30 coming out of college? He was decent. There was a quarterback who's 29 as a rookie or something like that.
Heineke, not
Heineke, but he's similar.
Winky.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
From Florida State.
Did Carolina take him?
He played
He
for
might have been
a few years.
I think it was Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, short career because, like I said, he came in already 29. But
well, he's got 2 Pro Bowl appearances already, Tremaine Edmunds. And what's crazy to me, and I don't know if people realize this, he only had 1 missed tackle last year. A 1% missed tackle rate. That's insane.
He's a tackling machine,
and
he's been very durable.
Down every year. It's been 16, 9, 9, 8, 1. I don't think 1 is going to happen again.
Yeah, that's an outlier. But solid player, and they added someone else in the.
Yeah, he's 6'5", 250. I mean, he is going to be your Urlacher, right? Like he has to be playing the middle. I know they asked him today if they talked about scheme, and he said they hadn't yet. But he's going to be your middle linebacker. And he's going to be the guy flying around just covering everybody. It's exciting. I think it was a good signing. But that brings us to our next guy. So another linebacker that they signed. A guy I had mentioned a few times. We did not bring him up, actually, in our mock offseason 2.0. But TJ Edwards, Wisconsin, undrafted free agent from Philadelphia, so there's that Ian Cunningham connection, but he's also from this area, and from what I understand, it sounded like he really wanted to play here. So we're going to throw it to you first, Bob. What do you think of the signing?
So, I mean, again, I think it's a good signing. To be honest, I didn't know too much about TJ Edwards going into free agency. He wasn't, like you mentioned early, like these guys aren't really guys we had circled. I think when you see they ship away Roquan, you don't think they're going to go invest in linebackers, but that's kind of exactly what they did. So this was, I think, the first signing that was announced on Monday, right? Like in the whole NFL. So you're like, oh, wow, look at that. Great contract. You trade away Roquan, don't pay him that money, and get the draft pick, and sign a replacement to this value. So, yeah, I think it's good. I guess I will just say one kind of concern. I know that he was really highly graded out in Philadelphia, but he was also playing that free roaming linebacker position on a defense just filled with studs across the board, right? So when he comes here, Is there a question the production won't stay up? But at the same time, I think his contract is so reasonable enough where he's, probably properly valued. And then, just the other thing you got to love hearing that, he wanted to come home and play for the Bears. As a Bears fan, that those are the guys you want to root for, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we didn't really talk about what all the segments are going to be, but we're talking first about the signings, and then we're going to talk about some of the people we thought they might go after who they didn't sign. I think an important thing to realize in free agency is it's got to be a match both ways. Like, the player has to want to come to the situation, and he clearly does. The guy that probably might feel sour about things is Sanborn, and this guy's path is the same as Sanborn's. They both played at Wisconsin, had good recognition while in college, like first team All-American, second team All-American, but went undrafted, and a lot of that was because when you're in the underwear Olympics and you're not running the times that other guys are running, you lose stock. But from what I hear in Philly, very smart player. He was wearing their green dot, calling the coverages, knows where to be. If you're not fast, you better know where you're supposed to be. And we saw that out of Sanborn last year, and that's what excited us about Sanborn. I'm not going to feel bad for Sanborn. When he's out there, I have faith that he'll make a difference. He was also a very important part of our special teams, and it's like that's an important phase of the game too. Yeah. So I like the signing, and I like where they're headed with that unit.
The Sanborn thing. I think it's smart though not to just rely on Jack Sanborn to come in. Like, he played great in 4 or 5 games. He kind of got banged up in the preseason. He got banged up again in the regular season. So yeah. Now you got good linebackers, a depth piece starting Sam. That's fine.
This guy's like Sanborn, but has shown over a longer period of time that he can do what we need him to do.
I want to say Sanborn was a freshman when he was a senior, so they had one game, one season together.
Okay.
So maybe, it's only a 3-year deal. Maybe Sanborn's on that same path, and he'll get a second contract here. And, as TJ Edwards goes out the door, right? Like, because he'll be 27 this year, so he's a little bit on the older side compared to Tremaine Edmunds, but
not compared to Bayless.
No, he's older than Bayless. He is older than Bayless.
Just not that old. Are we at our quota?
Or let's just keep a counter. We got a counter graphic going.
I do have still those, zero George Pickens references. Wait, is that one? Sorry.
Yeah, and also another good coverage linebacker. So another guy who isn't gonna be a mismatch issue when other teams are using their tight end or even running a wide receiver at their wide receiver at the linebackers. He's got a good coverage grade as well. So, I think it was a great pairing. And they're the way that they mold, the way that they're built, the way that their speed is, it is Urlacher and Briggs.
Can I say something about the coverage though? I'd say you're not going to get too much argument here if it was said that the strongest unit on the defense coming out of the season is the secondary. And we kept saying wow, they're pretty good, but imagine if they had a defensive line that provided pressure. We still don't necessarily think we have that.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that later in the show.
Right, but if you have a good secondary and you have linebackers that can cover, maybe it can be the opposite. Yeah. A few more coverage sacks, basically, instead of the opposite way around.
Well, there was a signing on the defense that I absolutely love today for the defensive lines, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
We'll probably have to pick this up a bit too, because
those are the biggest signings. I feel like so they're going to take a little bit longer. But on the opposite side of the ball, we got Nate Davis. Nate Davis is an offensive guard, played right guard his whole career for the Tennessee Titans. Justin, what's your thoughts on this signing?
So I really like the signing. However, and this is something Poles did address in the press conference. He comes in as a guy who's got, I think, 4 seasons of experience, all at right guard. Completely played right guard in the pros. I believe he played left guard in college a little bit, but he's a right guard. And the reason that kind of is a head scratcher is you got the only people we said we felt good about coming out of the season was that doesn't count on the ticker. Braxton Jones and Tevin Jenkins.
Yeah.
And Tevin Jenkins, it was controversial at the time. They moved him from tackle to play right guard, and he did a great job. Now, that being said, what Poles basically said is we want to get talent in here, and then we'll let the 5 best play who prove to be the best 5. So I'll leave that up to the coaches, but I definitely think Nate Davis is going to be in that 5 just based on his skill set. What do you got, Bob?
Yeah, and this is, very similar, I think, to the Edmunds signing. Like, this lineman just fits the vision for the team. I truly believe that what, Ryan Poles wants, so we'll get that to maybe some of the guys they missed out on, is 5 offensive linemen, all 6'4", 315 pounds, who can move and hit. And, that's what Nate Davis is now. So now he's got, 2 guys kind of handpicked in Braxton Jones and Nate Davis, plus, you got to love what Tevin Jenkins did while he was healthy, right? But I'm worried about his back. Worried about his back, and I'm worried about his mental, ability to deal with that back as well. So, you can complain about having holes on the offensive line too, but I don't think you complain about having too many good players on the interior of the line, right? So, I think it's a great signing. And again, I think it's showing that his vision for the team is where he's not going to compromise.
Yeah, and Poles mentioned today that they might be willing, right, to put Cody Whitehair at center if need be. So, I think if you were going to move the 2, I think Jenkins would be the guy you move to left guard. I think he's shown that he's versatile enough to do it, right?
I agree with that.
But then it's going to be also, like you said, because of that injury, either way, I think, and we had cut Cody Whitehair. He was a cap casualty for us, but I think based off of the comments today,
it doesn't sound like
I don't think he's going anywhere.
Well,
right?
And I actually am glad you bring that up. I'm not trying to be a guy who makes these hot takes and whatever. Right. We thought he was a cap casualty because of the money he would bring in, and maybe if you needed to sign. But Poles is kind of being strategic with the money, so the money is not the issue. And right now, moving Whitehair in is probably your best option. And so you have him under contract. Some of his best play, I feel like, has been at center. So
yeah,
I think he's valuable now.
Yeah,
so I wouldn't cut him today.
He has graded out way better at center than he has at guard. He has had snapping issues, which kind of makes me nervous, but so did Sam.
We're used to that already.
So I was going to wait till we talked about offensive line later, as long as we're focused on Whitehair.
Yeah.
It's great. I like that they're talking about moving him to center, but then I guess the question is, why didn't they consider this last year?
Yeah.
Right? Moving him to center, they really thought that Mustipher was better center than whoever they would bring in at guard, or is it just too hard to make that adjustment to center with all the calls in the middle of the season? And I don't know what the answer is, but I do. That was my thought. Why not consider that last year?
Offense, right? Maybe it is something that would be difficult for him to take on, November,
right?
So yeah, that's a good point though. I didn't think about that.
I agree with what you're saying, but I think it is more like they have hopefully better pieces that they can slide in. I can't think of, if he went to center, who would have even filled in at left guard. His free agent signings last year were kind of flops. Now, that kind of doesn't bode well for the fact that we're loving all his signings right now, but it's a very different position to come in.
Last year was all bargain basement veteran minimum.
Just to fill out a roster. And to tank.
Different.
Don't call it a tank.
These are hand picked. I want that guy, and I'm going to buy him.
Exactly.
Type of stuff.
He also missed time too, so he was playing hurt also. So maybe that played a part in it as well.
That's true.
But either way, I think the point is they're going to try to get the best 5 out there, and it is still possible, depending on what happens in the draft or maybe cuts that might happen, that maybe he still is a post June 1 cut. Just literally, it won't happen until after June. But we'll see.
There's a lot of centers in the draft I wouldn't mind drafting.
That's right. Big Ten guys.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Back to the defensive line. This is not the defensive lineman I was excited about. DeMarcus Walker, also out of Tennessee. What do you think, Bob? What do you think of this one?
This one, it's hard to have an opinion because I had no opinion about him before the signing. So after the signing, it's interesting to me that this is his 6th year, or he's been in the league 6 years, and he really just had 1 year of production. So that doesn't mean that I think he's going to regress. I'm curious to know what the rationale is for why that production is expected to sustain, right? And I wanted to listen to all the player interviews today, and I didn't get a chance to get through all of them, but I did hear his soundbite, which I know that, we're worried about our explicit rating here. So absolutely, he's here because of Justin Fields.
Good to know
so you gotta love that. You gotta love his energy. You see some stuff on social media. It seems like he takes, he takes the game seriously, and I think that's probably what really attracted, the Bears to him.
So I agree with your analysis there, Bob. and I wonder if you perhaps could speak to this, but his one season that was productive was his one season in Tennessee. I'm not sure what teams he was on prior, but I don't know if there's something schematic or a coaching connection or something like that might have brought him in.
I did see, I don't know about the coaching, all that. I know he's versatile on the line. He can line up in every position. And I think it was Adam Johns, broke down his snaps by position on the line. And all of his sacks came from either left end or left interior. So I thought that was kind of interesting that he could line up across the line. But so I don't know if that's just Jonathan Simmons lines up on the right for Tennessee and he was just able to play off him, or
and I keep going back to PFF, but they ranked him as an interior D-line, but you said he did take snaps inside and outside, and he was ranked 24th out of 127 qualified position players.
That's not bad for
but it's the one season that he would have been ranked to that.
And again, when Poles did describe Walker today, he used those buzzwords, right? Yeah. Violent and strong, those types of words, the guys he's looking for.
Yeah.
So.
I want guys that are weak and passive.
I do think he views
zag when they zig.
I don't know if he's going to zag that much, but I do think that they view him as a guy that, like, right now, I think they think he might be their 3-tech. So when he was in Denver, he had more steps as the 3 technique. When he was in Houston, he played one season in Houston, one season in Tennessee. He had his most pressures between those 2 years. He had his most sacks last year for Tennessee. But he was more on the outside as an end in those two defenses. I did not see the breakdown I broke down the snaps. I didn't break down like where the sacks came from in each position. That's interesting. I'm gonna have to try to find that article.
It was just a tweet. I don't think it was on the Athletic or whatever.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I follow him, so I can find it. Because he did have 4 sacks and 4.5 sacks with Denver the 2 years that he was like their full-time starter. And again, he played 2/3 of that time at the 3-tech. So he brings that versatility, and they have the opportunity to see like how this offseason plays out, where he's going to be.
So I actually saw that, like, raw numbers wise, he had fewer pressures than Draymond Jones, who we'll talk about later in the show.
Yeah.
But percentage of beating his blockers was much higher. So again, role on the team, who you're surrounded by, all of that matters. But they like what they saw in him. They went after him. I'm going to trust that, Poles seems to have a plan that he wants to stick to. And I like that in a GM. We're not used to seeing that in many of the GMs in Chicago. Correct.
All right. Let's speed through these guys.
Okay.
Because they're less important in my opinion.
So what a shot, but go ahead.
Yeah. So Travis Homer is next, running back from Seattle, mostly a special teams guy. I'll throw it to you, Justin.
All right. I just want to say, I feel that some of the reaction was misguided due to the timing of when it came out. It was like minutes after the announcement that Montgomery was signing with the Lions. And so I think people were like, this is who they're replacing Montgomery with? That's not the case. He's a third down back. He can block a little bit if you need that.
Special teams.
And he's a special teamer.
It's a special teams guy. Yeah, and really the only thing I knew about Travis Homer was like there was a week last year where the Seahawks were down to like no running backs except him. So I like scooped him up. Oh, is this his week? And he did like nothing at all. So
Bob's that was very down on the signing
impression. But I mean, it is what it. I mean, Pohl said today he's liked him since his college tape, so it's obviously somebody he had scouted in Kansas City. And again, those buzzwords, he says explosive. So maybe they think a couple opportunities here, and maybe he'll do something. But
yeah, he's one of the best pass blocking running backs in the league, according to himself. But
source
places like PFF also agree with that. But if you really want to watch him, go back to the Bears Titans preseason game, because there was one play that
Seahawks.
I'm sorry, we had two Titans.
The one highlight.
There's one highlight where like literally no one could tackle him.
He jukes out the whole team.
It was awful for the Bears standpoint. But
I was going to say a historic defense too.
Right.
I got nothing else on him. He's just a depth signing. My only concern, as I will say, is if they're going to be bringing him in only on passing downs, it might tip their hand a little too much.
But now they got all those passing weapons, so stop them.
Exactly.
That's true.
Love it.
Speaking of passers or passing, they brought in and released Trevor Siemian and brought in PJ Walker to be their backup quarterback. What's your thoughts, Bob?
So this one's pretty easy for me. I literally just wrote good signing, no notes.
No notes.
No notes.
You brought the New Girl references. Bob knows the show.
So here's what I would say.
guys.
When I was taking my notes, I have notes. I'm not going to lie. I said, okay, well, if this means Simeon is out, then I would like them to draft a prospect still. And at that time, he hadn't been released, but I see that now. So I like it. The thing I like too, and I know we're going quick, he has a skill set that if Fields goes out, you can still run what you're used to running, and he can slide in.
Yeah, I mean, even if it's just like for a defensive practice perspective, I mean, they don't always play against the starters, right? So it's like sometimes the starters on offense are playing against the backups on defense and vice versa. He's a shorter, I'm not going to say Justin Fields, but like he is a shorter version. He has the big arm, right? So he can throw it as far as Fields. And he's elusive. So it gives them at least something similar to practice with. Here's the signing I was actually most excited about on the defensive side of the ball after the linebackers. Andrew Billings, defensive tackle. He's going to be the one tech. Justin, what's your thoughts?
So I know why you're excited, because he's a big body, eating up the blockers.
Yes.
Let the linebackers cook.
Yes.
You know, so that's what I'm excited to see. I think this was one where I looked to Raider Twitter and see how mad they are that he left. And I'm like, oh, that means it's good. So, but yeah, huge guy. And he can stuff the run, which is something they did not do at all last year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like the signing. You know, if they're not going to make any of these kind of splash signings on the defensive line, give me these types of guys. Productive guys on a 1-year contract. They come in, do their job, and it does their job. Maybe, you know, get them another contract afterwards, right? But, you know, these are the ones. You know, it's kind of like, why would you sign Poona Ford for 3 or 4 years when you can get this guy for 1?
Yeah.
You know, give me 2 or 3 more of these guys on the defensive line before the end of the offseason. You know,
it's good I'm sitting in the middle because you taking a shot at Poona Ford. I didn't know if Rob was going to get up. And
no, I love this signing even better. Like Bob said, like you're getting it at a value, and I'm going to use the word value because that's what Ryan Pace. Oh my God, that's what Ryan.
That was worse than my Bayless slip.
That's what Ryan Poles keeps saying, right? And I'm excited about it. And Justin stole my thunder. Like that's exactly what these guys are there to do. Take on 2 guys, stuff those gaps, let the linebackers, you know, run around free. And they didn't have that last year. A lot of their one techniques were a little bit undersized, or just meh. I have no word to describe.
Undersized and over meh.
They might be okay with that because it was rough on the D line last year.
Oh, it was bad.
That was the measuring stick. That was bad today.
All right. So we had 2 late signings that we had to throw on here. One of these guys is a guy that I had mentioned that I had wanted. I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast, but I definitely did on at Bear Goggles on and some of my writing. Robert Tonyan, tight end out of Green Bay, obviously has that connection with Luke Getsy. More of a red zone threat, I think. But, you know, a couple of years ago, he did show before that injury that he could, you know, be a receiver as well. I don't know. What do you think on this one, Bob?
I love the signing, and I think it's important. I like to call him our second tight end, not the backup tight end, right? When we play a lot of 2 tight end sets, and that second tight end can't just be a backup out of there. He's the starter on that play, right? So now you got a guy who was the first option tight end somewhere. He knows what he's trying to do, and when you got him out the field, you got 2 options you got to worry about out there. So I love it.
I couldn't have said it any better. That's exactly how I feel about it as well. Still something I'd be okay with them looking at in the draft because truly they came into this with Kmet really just being your only tight end. And you need 2, you need 3, really. So I love it.
I'm glad you mentioned the draft. This is a very, very deep tight end draft. That's one of the top positions. Some really good guys that you can get in like the 2nd and 3rd rounds. And I would love to see them maybe find a guy who's more of like a Musgrave, somebody who can, you know, take the wheels off and you know, outrun the linebackers and be more of a receiving threat. So,
or like Darnell Washington,
that one-handed catch that he had.
He looks like a beast, but I just don't think the Bears are in a position to.
It has to depend on how far he falls.
Trading up, trading back, trading up, trading back.
Everything that we've seen, I feel like he's kind of pushed himself into that 2nd round, and I don't know if they're going to be able to take him there. So
that's fair. One more.
Yeah, Donta Foreman. Is it Donta? I call him Donta.
I think it's Dante.
Dante.
Dante. All right. Dante Foreman.
apostrophe.
We now have the Panthers' leading wide receiver from last year.
Backup quarterback.
Their backup quarterback.
Was he their leading? I mean, he played well, PJ, when he.
No. I'm saying leading receiver.
Oh,
DJ
quarterback.
Moore.
That's what I'm saying. Their quarterback too. Did he have better stats than Darnold last year? Did we get there?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I'd have to look into that.
Yeah.
It could be because they switched out so much, but we do have their leading running back for sure. He had over 900 yards.
He was a beast
in like 9 or 10 games.
Yeah.
Like as many touchdowns as David Montgomery,
So,
and for half the amount of money.
I mean,
third the amount of years.
Right.
There you go. I mean, I look at it this way: if he can beat out Travis Homer, then that's the guy they're bringing in to kind of replace Montgomery.
Yeah.
And let's also point out, Herbert was the person to replace Montgomery. I mean, if you look at a per carry statistical basis and things like that, Herbert is ready to be a 1A, 1B kind of guy.
He is. He is going to be their leading back. And Foreman's more like their power back. And then you got your, passing down guy in Homer.
Okay, but here's the thing. You talked about, like, are they just going to bring Homer in? Oh, they're all throwing. Let's hope that since it's very clear that Herbert has had problems with pass protection, that's something he's working on and developing and focused
Growth
on.
and development is still gotta be
That's
part of the equation.
coaching. That's work ethic. That's things I'd like to see. If we're just sitting here on a couch being like, he can't block, he can't pick up blitzes. Braxton Jones keeps getting beat on the bull rush. I mean, these are things they know and better be trying to correct.
Yeah.
So long first segment, but we'll tighten it up.
There's a lot of signings to
I think
cover.
it was worth it. It's a big, I know.
I said this was, if I didn't say it, I meant to say this is going to be a longer episode. It's going to be broken up. So if you guys want to just check out one section at a time, like we're going to be at like 35 minutes here. So at the 35-minute mark, come back in a couple hours and listen to the next segment. Sounds good.